people that are actually conducting the attack. So who is behind this? It's very difficult. There are a couple of groups that are known to use this, such as the Network Crack Program Hacker Group in China. A company in the US has a very good analysis of this online. Titan Rain was the incident that involved the US Department of Defense, similar attack again. And so it's really, really difficult to attribute this to a specific attacker, because control surface can be shared, exploit code can be shared across groups, and really motive and techniques become the discriminators. And now I was really impressed this year with the Congress that there were so many ladies actually here, so I don't really want to discourage them. But one thing that people taught me when I was young was that one thing that makes history are maps and chaps. And so the thing you need to do is you need to build a map of these attacks to try and identify which machines are involved. On this map you can see the different parking addresses. These are right in the middle here. You can see some of the other hosts. I have to admit I removed some IP addresses here because I wouldn't want them to be shut down tomorrow by some strange coincidence. So this is really an overview of what has happened over the last couple of months. It's not complete, but it sort of draws a picture of how complex these attacks can become. Now, how do we defend against this? This is really just a very short introduction to some techniques that you can use. You can build a wall, but we know that that worked in the city when you had a road and you had to approach the wall. But nowadays, when you have the ocean, walls really don't make much sense anymore. 2 minutes. Oh, wonderful. Now we'll have to hurry up. So first of all, antivirus. As you've seen, antivirus really isn't the most effective approach, but what you do need to think about is when you deploy antivirus, that antivirus is actually a very complex technology. People think we deploy antivirus and all of our problems are solved, but that's really not the case. You have to think about how antivirus deals with, for example, packed binaries, how they deal with new malware. Look at retrospective tests as they occur. Sandboxing has very limited value because sandboxing generally wants to see how a certain specimen behaves in a certain environment. The problem is your sandbox is never as complex as your real-life environment and never as complete unless and if it is, it's way too slow. Host IPS generally is a good approach, but it carries a lot of false positives with them. Software hardening is one solution. You can control the various software assets that you have. For example, if your users are using WinRAR, you might have a problem getting them patched because WinRAR doesn't patch automatically when a vulnerability is found. For Office, Microsoft released some great tools called MoIce, which actually convert from older Office formats to the new ones, which really protects you quite well against these types of attacks. Network security monitoring, monitoring DNS, for example, monitoring which host names resolve to 127.0.0.1 is generally quite interesting. Build awareness, identify communications that require trust, so people emailing each other, do they need to be certain that it's from this person, and start thinking about making them trustworthy, certificates and such. And then very important, and I'm going to take 2 minutes for this one, is security intelligence. The problem with these attacks is that they happen, and generally when they happen, the attacker has all the time in the world to get something to work with your specific environment. This isn't reducing the noise floor. Generally in security we're reducing the noise floor. We're trying to limit the amount of infections. We're trying to limit the amount of issues that occur. In this case we really need to be careful about the people that actually want to attack us, so who might be interested in our data. And what are the techniques that they use to access our data? So learn about their methodology, learn what they might use. In the US, for example, there are some great things that are called ISAC, Information Sharing and Analysis Centers. And these are really groups of companies that work in the same area, so really the same business line. And they share information on the attacks that have happened. And by sharing this information, when one company is attacked, then it distributes this information to the other companies and they can protect themselves as well. In Europe, we've got a pretty bad reputation in this. In the UK, they've got something called WARPs, which are also analysis and reporting centers, but most of Western Europe actually doesn't really have these right now. And as I also showed, having some insight into the threat agent, looking at what is happening in these attacks, could be very useful in actually better protecting your organization. So that actually concludes everything I had, so I think we still have some time for questions and answers.
First, thank you, Martin. Now, if anyone has any questions, Please wait for me with the microphone for the benefit of the people who are with us remotely. So, the first question.
Hi, okay. I assume most of these targeted attacks currently have the goal of information gathering. And I want to go back a little bit to the definitions you had at the beginning of information operations. So you also mentioned psychological operations, influencing the decision-making process. Do you see a trend in these attacks also having the goal of manipulating data or planting data information to influence decisions? Or is this more a means to an end currently? And what would you recommend how to adjust security controls to address this kind of threat?
Okay, it's a very broad question, but the issue I've mainly been experiencing is that you don't really get a lot of information about what they are trying to do. So you can see that, for example, in one case they actually try to access an email box. In other cases, one thing that really clarifies where the attacks are going to is the switch from backdoors to actually just gathering credentials to email accounts. So for the moment, what I've been seeing is really focused on gaining information. It's not focused on changing data. So far, there has not been any indication that it's moving in that direction. Given the definition given at the beginning, it is a possibility. It's something that we need to take into account. But for now, it looks like it's based on gathering information to use that information to then do more items, but of course, or do more activities that would actually place them at an advantage. But that's difficult to measure for the moment, of course. And regarding the controls, I think you can implement a lot of controls to reduce the noise floor. You can implement controls by thinking, as I said, about antivirus. For example, most of these attacks use packed executables, and you've got a lot of antiviruses that, for example, block packed executables. And this is a problem if you do it on the desktops, because there are some executables that are part of really complex software packages that are also packed to prevent reverse engineering. But in most cases on the email side, for example, you can generally relatively safely block these attacks because people generally don't exchange software through email or shouldn't be exchanging software through email. So those are really the types of controls that you should be looking at based on really what is happening out there. And second, of course, exchanging information is very critical. So if you know about one of these attacks, for example, exchanging the information that you have about it might be a difficult thing to do for some commercial companies, but it is one thing that does help. And I think governments also need to do their part there by actually introducing these types of information sharing mechanisms to actually protect the companies that actually are based in their territory, to put it that way.
Okay, it would be nice if people who are leaving would postpone talking till they're outside. I think we have time for one little tiny question.
No more questions?
Well, you can talk to Martin for the rest of the Congress. So let's thank him again for this wonderful talk.
Thank you. And as I said, you can always email me as well. So either talk to me here at the Congress, I'm here. And otherwise, just send me an email and I'd be more than happy to reply. Enjoy.